Hi everyone, my name is Keely and I'm the owner and creator here at Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for another soap making video. Today I'm doing another Australian themed soap and I'm using Australian Bush by Aroma. Now it's got notes of lemon, pine needles, lemon myrtle, eucalyptus, sandalwood and patchouli. And I have been told by Susan, who is one of my patrons, to be prepared to work fast with this one. So luckily I've got plans to work in layers and we will see how it goes. Alright, so let's get started. Because I have been told that this is a accelerating fragrance, I am going to do a lot of this with the whisk. I'm also going to do the first layer, see how it behaves, and then see whether or not I'm going to be able to do my design idea for the second layer, or if I'm going to have to change my kind of thinking on it. So I've just poured my lye water solution into my oils and I'm going to give that a good mix until it comes together. Right, that's looking okay for now. We will give it a bit more of a mix in a bit. First thing I'm going to do is pour myself a bit off for some piping for later on. And that's probably enough there, so I'll pop that off to one side. What I'm going to do for my base layer, I'm going to use some red, and in here I have got some rosewood mica, so I'm going to pour off a fair bit to do my base with. So I'm doing the base in a red because in a lot of places in Australia you get this really rich red soil, and where I am, so we have sort of shires or districts here in Australia. So everyone's pretty much familiar with Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, which are the sort of main ones in Queensland where I am. And I'm in one called Redlands Coast, which is smack bang between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. And it's called the Redlands, or the Redlands Coast as it's recently been renamed to, because of the red soil that we get here. It's really nutritious and very good for farming. So I've mixed in my colorant. What I'm going to do now is grab my fragrance oil, and it's quite a dark fragrance oil. I'm going to pour it in. I'm going to pulse it with the stick blender, and then hopefully, if it doesn't set in the pot, I have got some Red Desire mica or Desire mica, and I'm going to do a mica drop swirl before putting it into the mold, because I'm keen to see what happens when you put that sort of more concentrated color into a light color. So let's cross our fingers and toes and hope for the best. Well, Suzanne, you certainly weren't exaggerating there. It was 1 minute very fluid, and then as I was pouring it, it started to plop. So it is definitely a fast moving, but you know what, it smells really good. If you like those sort of natural outdoorsy sort of smells, this one definitely has that aroma. It's going to be one of those really nice clean sort of scents that you get on soap. So luckily I didn't want this to be a flat bottom. I did want it textured. So that is one plus. I'm going to have a little bit of a rethink about what I'm going to do for my next layer, and then we'll get started. Alright, so I'm going to be really stubborn here. I don't want to sacrifice my actual design plan that I've got, so I am still going to try and go for the in the pot swirl of some different greens. When you look out into the Australian bush, you see all these bright and dark greens, and then you see speckles of grey through it as well, and that's kind of what I want to try and achieve with this next layer, to make it look like you are actually looking through the bush. So I have got some chartreuse mica in this bigger pot. I've got some elusive in this one, and then I have got some, which one did I decide to use? I've used some Silver Lake in that one. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to give myself just a little bit more green and save that for my top layer. I'm going to mix these in with the stick blender to make sure that it is well incorporated. Then I'm going to stir in my fragrance oil, and hopefully that will give me time. And to give myself even more of a fighting chance with this, I am only going to pour fragrance into that dark green. Let's give that a real quick stir and get that in. Alright, let's start moving. This is going to be a messy soap. Let's get the grey in. Let's get the dark green in. Let's get our mould. Change hands and pour. Fingers crossed we can get all of this in. So far, so good. Way! That's all gone in. Oh my goodness. So that is the way to go with this fragrance. Well, that was much better. I'm just going to smush the top around a little bit, because when you look at the actual skyline of the bush, it is always bumpy because you have all those trees. If I remember, I will try and put a couple of pictures of some of the bushland that is around by us, so you can kind of get an idea of what it is that I am trying to achieve with this very, very naughty fragrance. Alright, so because that one did go so well for me, I'm going to continue to be stubborn and finish off this design the way I wanted it. So I'm going to pour off a fair bit into that one there. Into this jug, I have got my titanium dioxide here, and give that a shake to make sure that it is all well shaken up. And that's usually when I manage to spray it all over the workshop as well. So I'm going to put a bit of titanium dioxide in there. Into my big bucket for what is left, I have got some cobalt blue, and I'm going to put in a fair amount of that because this fragrance oil is so dark. I don't want it to dull this blue colour. So I'm going to get these ones mixed in, and then we are going to race against the clock again, and we're going to pour it on the top. It certainly is an absolute race against the clock to get this one in. By the time I kind of get down to these real last dregs that are in the bucket, it has pretty much set. And I do want a relatively flat top on this one, so I don't think I have got too much play time for scraping out. We'll see how we go. So I'm not going to do anything more with that. It has pretty much set solid now. It's not as flat as I wanted, but I'm still going to be able to work with that. I just don't want to ruin it any more than what I think the bottom layer might be. I've got high hopes for that middle and top layer. We'll see what happens on the bottom. For now, what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to mix some chartreuse mica into this soap here, and then get it ready to do some piping. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit more slow paced and I know is going to work really well. In my piping bag here, I have a Wilton 366 leaf tip, which is one of these with just the little V shape cut into the sides. What I'm going to do is work with it so that the V's are on either side of my piping nozzle here, and I'm going to start not quite at the top because we've got some little gum flowers to go on here, about, I don't know, a third of the way down. I'm going to start squeezing, and as I come down I'm releasing the pressure so I get a nice elongated leaf. Alright, so again I'm coming about 2/3 down. I'm going to make sure I've got enough for at least one leaf on each of these to start with, and then if I've got some soap left over, I will look at putting a second leaf on here. So I'm going to keep going all the way down along here. So are you a bush person or are you a ocean person? Both hubby and I do prefer the bush setting for our home, though the water is only about a 15-minute drive away from where we are. When we first moved down into the Redlands, we had a house where we were right on the water's front, and we used to get these beautiful views of the Stradbroke Island, Russell Island, and all of those as well. and we decided when we were moving that we really wanted to come out to the bush. So we moved to a place called Mount Cotton, and it is just the most beautiful bushland around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little gum flowers on. These are our gum flowers, which we made in the behind the scenes video, and I will leave a link for you up in the top corner so you can check out how these were made. I'm going to put one onto each of these soap bars and then determine whether or not I need another gum leaf. So yeah, we decided when we were moving that we wanted to come and live in the bush area, which is why we decided to move to where we did. And we are surrounded by gum trees and all the wattles and just all the natural bushland. We get kangaroos in our front garden, and especially since we had the new turf laid, we frequently get kangaroos come up into the garden at night time, which drives our dog absolutely batty because she wants to get to them and play. But of course we are not going to let her do that. We have also had echidnas in our yard and front yard as well. I prefer them in the front yard than the backyard because again I can protect them from the dog. But we get all sorts of beautiful wildlife here, but we are quite literally only 15 minutes away from the water. We're about 15 minutes away from our old house as well. It is definitely the most beautiful setting. When my family and I first moved over here to Australia, which was 30 years ago this February, we lived out in the bush. It was about an hour to an hour and a half away from the city. It's probably closer these days with the infrastructure that we now have, but we lived out in the bush with my grandparents, and we stayed there when we were on holiday as well, and just fell in love with everything about the bush. My parents have koalas, or they used to get a lot of koalas in the area. Since the estate has been built up even more, they get fewer of the koalas now, but they do still get to see a few when they're walking around. So the bush is definitely something that I absolutely love about this place. I'm getting towards the end. Now this blue has well and truly set up, so I can't get these gum nuts in there. So I am thinking I'm going to have to try and put a couple of extra leaves on here just to give these gum nuts something extra to stick to so that they don't fall off when it comes time to cutting the soap. One final touch. This is only going to stick to the green, but I have got some holographic biodegradable glitter here, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over onto the leaves so that it looks like there could be maybe some dewdrops sitting on the leaves, which is something that I love to see in the morning when I look out off our balcony. Okay, so here is Australian bush up close. I am absolutely loving this. This just makes me smile. That bright blue colour and that soft pink of the gum nut flowers with that green to really set it off. I'm going to leave this one sit overnight, and then we'll come back and we will cut it open. So I get to cut open this Australian bush. I am absolutely loving it. I love that biodegradable glitter on the top. Now the red has gone a little bit funny on the bottom. Usually when I pour my mica into the soap, I get a less messy effect. But because that soap set up so quickly, I have actually got sort of big patches of mica. So I'm hoping that while this sits on the curing rack and it dries out, that sort of red globby stuff will also dry out. So just get my hands clean. Alright, let's get this one cut open. Hopefully we have got that all nicely lined up. I can't really see. I think I just need to come down just a little bit. There will be a little bit of damage to some of those bits, but as long as we can get a majority of the gum nut and the leaves on each bar, I am happy with that. Let's cut through and see what we've got on the inside. Alright, so let's grab this one off the end here. And that, oh, is the inside of Australian bush. And it really is the kind of look I was going for. I can see in patches in here where that sort of mica swirl has actually gone in there, and it just looks like veins of like ore or something going through that red dirt. And then there's just this mass of green bush and that brilliant blue sky with white clouds. I can see we've got a bit of glycerin river around all of those clouds. They're kind of really highlighting them, so they look a little bit stormy as well. I absolutely love how that has come together. And that is the top with our little gum nut flower and our gum leaves. I am so pleased with how that came out. Yes, it moved very quick, and that bottom layer was a little bit tricky, but now I know next time I will actually use my stick blender as I always do, and then just hand stir that fragrance in. Sometimes it does work to do the whisking at the start and then stick blend it all together at the end, and then just other times, as with this soap, it really doesn't. But I am pretty happy with the actual end result that I've got here. Now, despite how fast that moved, it is well worth it because this fragrance oil smells absolutely amazing. It really does smell nice and clean, and just like you would expect if you went into one of the bushland areas, especially if there's been just enough light rain to really dampen that sort of soil. That's the sort of smell that I'm getting from here. And that blue with the white wisps through it, that just reminds me of how our clouds do sometimes look up in the sky. I like the little bits of grey that have popped in there as well, just representing all the grey trunks that you get off the eucalypts out there. So I hope you've enjoyed watching how I made my Australian bush soap. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. If you are new around here and have enjoyed watching this video, why not hit the subscribe button and check out some of the other videos in the playlist. And until the next video, I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you then. Bye!